Spinning. We are live. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are tuning in from. I am Karie Johnson, host of the Life Lounge podcast for Life Network. And today I have the amazing, the incredible Dr. Leeland Stillman. How are you doing today?
Stop it. I'm blushing. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We
Good
are
to
so
see you.
great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So grateful to have your time this morning. I know you are a very busy man. And we're just grateful to be able to have the opportunity to ask you some questions. I know I learn a lot from you all the time, so I appreciate it. So if anybody is tuning in live today, then let us know where you're coming in from. I love to hear that. Drop it in the chat. But we already have some great questions that have been dropped into the Life Network platform. We're starting forum threads. Our social feed is live there as well now. So if you haven't downloaded the app, it's free. You can download that and start asking your questions there, because not everybody can tune in live, but at least we can get your questions answered today. So with that, I am going to go ahead and jump in. Dr. Stillman, are you ready?
Ready, let's go.
All right. So what are the most overlooked hidden environmental stressors affecting people's health today? That's kind of loaded.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And I'm going to drop this question in the chat so we can actually have it in the banner in case people are tuning in later so they know what you are answering.
Have I got a fun story for you this morning? It's so fun that you're asking me this after my weekend. So I'm told my son's not a newborn, but he seems very newly born to me. He's 4 months. And my wife noticed that whenever we took him outside, he would get less fussy and more calm. And we posted some really fun reels about this over on Instagram because it's almost immediate. You take him out into the sun, and if he's fussing, he just immediately relaxes. And we live in Florida, so we have strong sun most of the year. And she said to me, I'm concerned that maybe the house has mold, which is one of the main hidden health factors in people's houses and buildings that make them sick. And she said, how do we know that the house doesn't have any mold? We had a flood 3 months ago, which was a disaster, but it could have been a lot worse. We actually were fortunate to catch it early. We replaced all of the baseboards. Our landlady is amazing.
Oh, good.
Best landlady I've ever had. So we replaced all the baseboards with brand new baseboards, and they brought in industrial strength dehumidifiers that were so strong they flipped all the breakers in the house once or twice.
Whoa.
And they sucked all, hey, listen, it's Florida. We know how to handle water damage.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Not that everybody does. Some people make mistakes, but anyway. So, I mean, these things were so strong, they sucked the water out of the drywall. It was wild.
That's crazy. I've never heard of that.
So cool. Yeah. I mean, anyway, so I mean, electrical bill was frightful, but I'm okay with that. Anyway, so I just said, honey, there's no way there's mold in the house. Maybe, okay, but we're not acting like it, in the sense that I look usually when the whole family, when there's mold in the building and the wife and the husband work or live in the home with the child, I expect everyone to get kind of sick all at the same time.
Yeah.
If the husband's on the road or the husband's in the office, then he's got 8 or 10 or sometimes 24 hours a day, some days of the week, that he's not in the house, right? You know, depending on how much he's out of the house.
Right.
So that can create a real confounder there. And I said, honey, what about positive ions? There's been some great articles. I just wrote a great article on zeta potential, which has to do with positive ions. I don't think I wrote about positive ions in the article, but it's basically improving your zeta potential is the answer for positive ions, which are a real stress. They're created by electrical appliances in the home. Even when they're not on, they can be creating them. And they create a stress on your body. And then EMF. And I said, honey, before we test the home for mold and spend, hundreds or thousands of dollars having it inspected or whatever, why don't we just see what happens when we turn all of the circuit breakers off for one day of the weekend, which is one of my favorite things to tell patients to do, because they don't realize how constantly being distracted, constantly being notified, people ask me how I do what I do. How do you write blog posts? How do you see patients? How do you run a business? How do you still be a dad and a husband and have a happy marriage? A big secret to my success is being unavailable. And that means my phone's on airplane mode.
Good job.
It's really only off airplane mode when mom and baby are not close to me.
Right.
Because I want to be able to pick up the phone if they need something.
Mm-hmm.
So we turned off all the circuit breakers at around 11 o'clock on Sunday. and it was an immediate feeling of relaxation and calm.
Whoa.
And my wife is so enthusiastic about this now that we're living life with almost no circuit breakers on.
That's
And
so cool.
I know. It's so funny though, because I anticipated my wife being less enthusiastic about it than me.
Yeah.
But I'll turn a breaker on. She's like, when can we turn it off? I'm like, I don't know when we're done using that appliance.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So are you guys doing it more than once a week now? Or just
Every
Sundays?
day. Every
Every day.
day.
Every day.
Yes. There
Okay.
are, we will literally turn on the breakers just to run the appliances.
That's so
I
that's
know
so
it
cool.
sounds
I haven't heard of any.
crazy, but
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
it. Try it. You'll be shocked. And I became really aware of this when I started to actually have the time and energy uh, and knowledge to counsel patients about it. I'll never forget the first patient who took me seriously. And this is an interesting problem because often EMF exposure compounds as you become more wealthy. So she had giant home, fancy new car every year as a business expense, of course,
Yeah.
home theater. She had all this stuff. She had all these different sources of electrical exposure, electromagnetic radiation exposure, or frequency exposure. And she mitigated all of it. And her headaches, which she'd said were 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10,
Whoa.
bad enough that she was contemplating how to continue living her life. We got
Whoa.
them down to about a 7 out of 10 with
Okay.
diet, lifestyle, nutrition, supplementation, lab
Yeah.
testing, things like that. But the 7 to 4 out of 10 happened after she mitigated her home for EMF.
Okay. And was she doing the circuit breaker thing, or what else was she doing?
No, she had an EMF inspector come over and
Okay.
actually thoroughly inspect the home. So this is the do-it-yourself, simple, I mean, much easier version of this. I guess easier is relative. But the other simple way to do this is pack up your stuff for the weekend and go camping. And I'm
Mhm.
not talking about, I'm going to pack up my fifth wheel and go to the middle of the woods and be surrounded by air conditioning and an electrical stove or whatever. I
Right.
mean, you get a tent and you put it in the back of your car and you drive to a trailhead and you hike into the woods
Mm.
and you sleep on the ground and your phone's in airplane mode the whole time if you bring it at all. And
Mm.
you are actually disconnected from the grid and electronics and society. And I'm getting excited just thinking about it.
Are you
Unfortunately,
doing that
well, for better or for worse, here in Florida, camping season is about 1 month of the year.
too? That's probably true.
And the rest of the year, you either, I don't know. I'm actually, on my list of things to read is I would really like to read histories of the Native Americans of Florida because I don't know how they lived here without air conditioning. I
Ooh.
genuinely am curious. How did they deal with the bugs, the mosquitoes? I
Yeah.
don't know. But
Yeah.
anyway, so that's one of my favorite things to tell patients to do. Not a lot of them take me up on it, but it's remarkable the stories they tell me when they do. Like, I have never felt as good as I felt when I was camping coast to coast.
Mm.
Well,
That's cool.
maybe you should go back to doing that
Yeah.
if you're practically speaking disabled by your illness when you're not camping. Just a
Interesting.
thought. Yeah.
It's so like we're so used to being comfortable, right? So it's like the comfort crisis
Hmm.
by Michael Easter. It's hard to let go of all those comforts, but like you said, it's disabling us, and we just keep holding on to it, even though we know that it's probably causing headaches or inflammation in our body. But just yeah, like you said, just disconnecting for the weekend or just turn off the circuit breakers. Is there any other kind of low hanging fruit that you would recommend that would help out with that?
Opening the windows,
Mm,
ventilating the house.
yeah.
Modern construction is just, they've optimized for all the dollars and cents that go into your electrical, your heating bill, your cooling bill, and not for your health. And so it's very routinely cited that indoor environments may have 200 times the amount of air pollution as outdoor environments. Now, obviously, that varies. Not
Yes.
saying you should open your doors and windows when there's a fire, a wildfire 2 doors down. But use your judgment. There's times when, here in Florida on the coast, there's almost always fresh air coming in from the Gulf, to say nothing of the people who are trying to spray things in the atmosphere to block out the sun. We'll just leave
That's
that
cool.
one over there.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Oh man. Okay. So that's a great thing people could do today. Just kind of open up, get some fresh air. I love that circuit breaker tip. And then we did have to kind of piggyback off of that. We had another
Oh,
question.
I got to add a caveat. Don't
Ooh, add a
turn off your
caveat.
circuit breaker, and get mad at me because your chest freezer thawed out, your stuff in your refrigerator went bad. I mean, don't, like, if grandma's out on the porch with her oxygen concentrator, don't turn it off.
Do that. That would be bad.
Just a thought.
Yeah. So then what would you like? How long do you guys leave it off? You said you just leave it off.
We left the fridge running and the AC.
I was gonna say,
that was it.
Fridge, deep freezer, that could be a big mess. So
yeah, we're about to take delivery of a quarter of a cow. So,
cool.
she kind of looked at me in a panic the other morning and said, "There's nothing in the chest freezer, right?" I said, "No, honey, there's nothing in the chest freezer. I thought about that before we turned off that breaker."
Good. Yeah.
But there will be a quarter cow in it this Friday, and I'm not going to turn it off again.
Very cool. Good job. Yeah, we do that as well. So, okay, sweet. So to piggyback off of that, Jen from Life Network asked, did I already pull that in? Here it is. So then what would be the best device to measure EMF exposure in the home?
Hello, Jen. Great to hear from you. What's the dog's name?
This is Bo.
Bo, good to hear from you too. I'm glad you're excited about this. Okay, so this is a tough question because the truth is, if you want to get into the professional level, you've got to spend thousands of dollars. And if you want to just get into the game, I like there's this little kit called the electrosmog kit at Safe Living Technologies. That's what I've used. It's really basic. I've also measured things like the Cornet and the tri-field meter. Those are fine. The thing that I was struck by in this particular instance of turning the circuit breakers off is that there was not a significant difference in the readings that I have, even with all my meters, which are, probably $4,000 or $5,000 worth of gear. There was not a huge difference in the meter readings. And that's something that I really try to impress upon patients. It's not about the numbers. And the way I try to explain this is, if I'm talking to you at a reasonable volume, hopefully it doesn't make you want to forcibly stop me from speaking. Hopefully I'm not that annoying. But if I were scratching my fingers on a chalkboard at the same volume, you would, if I did this for long enough, surely take some kind of action to get me to stop.
Oh yeah.
And the thing you need to recognize is that it doesn't matter what the magnitude of the field is. It matters what the frequency is.
Okay.
And this is why clinically what you see, like you'll see this online if you bother to look. People will return their wireless, whatever, earbuds, Bluetooth speakers, whatever, because they'll figure out that when they use them, they get something like headaches or tinnitus or anxiety or brain fog. Well, if it caused that in 100% of people, everyone would know, but it doesn't. And why does it cause brain fog in one person and tinnitus in another and irritability in a third and insomnia in a fourth? Nobody knows. Maybe we'll never know. It doesn't really matter. Sometimes I try to impress on patients. It doesn't matter as much all these details of what's going on, why it's going on. What matters is, what are we going to do to take corrective action to get you relief from symptoms and long-term health and well-being so that you can live a long and healthy life. And the truth is, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I say that all the time to patients. The proof of a therapy is using it. It's not, what's the study say? What does the patent read out?
Yeah.
Did it work for your friend Betty or Joe? No. You're different. You're unique. And also you have to respect that it may not work for you today, like it's going to work for you tomorrow or the next day or the next week or next year. So that's why I'm such a big fan of just trying it, because it costs $0 to turn off your circuit breaker.
Yeah.
And you might be shocked at what you see happen when you do this. I have had the weirdest stories. Like I had a patient once tell me that they turned off their wireless radiation in their house, just the Wi-Fi. And there was this clock that they had to keep resetting. It kept getting off time.
Oh.
And the clock started running time correctly.
Oh, that's wild.
It's so
How does
weird.
that happen?
I don't even know. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm the last person. But I just thought, well, that's very odd, But people will have these stories, of one story after another. Anyway,
So like you said, yeah, just try it. Like you said, it
yes,
doesn't matter whatever the papers say, like what's
it
happening to
doesn't
you in your
matter.
body.
Doesn't matter. Because the other thing I love about turning off your circuit breaker is that people just lose track of how draining it is to be plugged into the world
Mm,
and how refreshing it is to be plugged into the people you've chosen to spend your life with. So
mm,
when I turn the circuit breaker off and my phone is on airplane mode and my wife's phone is on airplane mode, we are 100% present with each other.
mm.
And that's such a beautiful thing. And so
Wow.
many people are suffering today from anxiety and depression and
Mm,
fatigue and all these things. Why? Because they're plugged into a world that doesn't give them the warmth, the love, the empathy that they need. A lot of them, I have to add this, are plugging into that world to escape the pain of being in relationship with people who are toxic. My
right.
favorite books on that are Don't You Know Who I Am, Dr. Ramani Durvasula,
Mhm.
and Should I Stay or Should I Go, also by her. Really great books. Also Boundaries by Cloud and Townsend and Safe People by Cloud and Townsend.
That's
Excellent books.
yes, yes, yes. So good.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been shocked by patients telling me that, they broke up with their boyfriend and that was the last day they had headaches. You
Hmm.
know, I'm not saying this is a good thing, but like they got a divorce and all of a sudden all these symptoms that were Lyme or mold or candida or allergies just went away. I mean,
Wow.
it's just amazing how toxic people are in a very real physical sense. They actually poison your physical body with their bad energy.
That's so crazy. And I definitely believe it. So yeah,
Right.
it's a hand in hand with the environment and
Yeah.
then the people that you surround yourself with. So,
Right.
oh my goodness gracious. Yeah,
Which is
so many
why we're so excited about Life Network.
that is right. Yes.
Surround yourself with positive, emotionally healthy people.
Yeah, just taking that active,
Yeah.
choice for you and what you're consuming. So just
Yeah.
instead of, negative toxicity that's out there, it's, just amazing life-giving things. So, yes, we are grateful. Okay. So another one then kind of similar too. So how do you personally balance living close to nature while still enjoying modern life? You've kind of hit on this a bit, but I'm sure there's more you can expound on.
Casey, good to hear from you. So, number one, you should probably involve the people with whom you share life.
Yeah.
So, my wife said, "Listen, you've got a wife and a baby now. You can't live your life on airplane mode when you're not with us." I said, "Okay, fine." So my phone's not on airplane mode all the time now, which it pretty much was.
Mm,
And so you've got to really focus on being in relationship with people and asking hard questions about, well, what's most important to us. And then you've also got to have good hard conversation with yourself about, well, what do I need, what are my needs, because some people are going to ask you for things that don't allow you to meet your needs. Like I've
right.
seen some pretty clingy people over the years who, I've got to be able to wake you up at 1 o'clock in the morning if something's wrong.
Mm,
Well, if that's going to be our norm, then how often are you going to do that? Right. Because I've got to figure out a way to deal with that.
mhm,
And so you have to have those conversations with people. And I think it's very important. My wife and I had many conversations about what we wanted life to be like before we got married. I've
mm,
actually been shocked at the number of people who don't do that. Basically, the person they wind up getting married to or proposing to or saying yes to is somebody they had a lot of fun with and
yeah.
enjoyed all the same things. But as far as their shared vision for a future, they didn't actually create alignment on that. So they found out, when it was a very awkward time for them to break up, rings were in the picture, rings were almost in the picture. Oh,
Mm,
we don't want to have the same number of kids. We don't want to live in the same place. We don't want to have the same lifestyle. Uh, and so we had all those conversations. And I have to admit, even despite all that, I was blown away by the fact that my wife is and I'm so grateful for this, excited to turn the circuit breaker off. Uh, because I thought she was going to say, well, look, can we just leave like half of them on so we don't have to, but she sees the value. And that's
So
part of why we got married is
yeah,
that we both look at, and I was so funny. I said to her, I said, do you realize how rare it is that you're okay with this, that you think this is great?
it
She
is a
said,
rarity.
I know, right? She
Mhm.
doesn't have that perspective. She's like, really? I said, honey, other girls would think you were totally nuts. And she said something snide about like, what kind of girls were you dating or whatever. I was just like, honey, like, I don't think you have any concept of like, do you talk to other women? Like, run this by a handful of them and let me know what they say, because I really think it's very unusual for you to think, oh, turning the circuit breakers off is an inconvenience. It means I have to think about when I'm going to do the laundry, but my baby feels better, sleeps better, and I feel better. I'm going
Mm,
to take that trade all day. A lot of people, you tell them, hey, you're burning your house down with this and that and the other, fast food,
mhm,
technology use at night, the wrong exercises, the wrong diet, the wrong this, the wrong that. They say, look, I'm ready to burn out, not fade away. Let's go. I'm like, what's wrong with you? But that's their perspective, you know?
yes. Oh, that's true. Yeah, so it is possible to balance, but
Yeah.
you
And
might, raise a
yeah,
couple eyebrows.
it is possible to balance this. I think the best thing about it in my world is when you really embrace nature, everything about it is really affordable. Let me give you an example. We bought paddle boards, not a powerboat. The difference in cost is exponentially greater for powerboats,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And I'll be honest, we live in Southwest Florida. I would love to have a powerboat. Maybe one day we will have a powerboat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we don't need that to have fun. We just go to the beach with a paddleboard,
Mhm.
and really have, just as much fun as if we were on a powerboat, and we get
Right.
a workout in, and we, see the world at a slower pace, which I like.
Yeah,
And, uh, you know, during that day, Sunday, when we had the circuit breakers off, we went outside and we turned on the gas grill,
cool.
and I cooked everything on the grill all day,
Yeah,
including dinner, and we ate outside. It was really fun.
yeah.
And so none of that cost me anything
No,
other than, of course, what I would have spent on food anyway.
true.
So when you really start to think about, well, I'm going to live closer to nature, well, then you're going to buy less expensive
Mhm,
stuff.
mhm.
You're
Yeah,
not going to have to, like the example I used earlier of having a home theater. We don't even have a television. And if we had a television, I don't know when we would find time to watch it. In the
mhm.
evenings when we're not working, we usually play a board game,
Awesome.
or somebody reads a book aloud, or we're just busy with our son.
Yeah.
And I genuinely think to myself, how would I watch TV even if I had one? Where would I put that in my day? I'm so busy being a husband and a dad
Yeah,
and then
and
running my business. So,
enjoying your life, living your own life versus watching someone
right,
else's.
right. So,
Oh, that's good. I love that. I love that you guys don't have a TV too. So that's and I mean, a lot of people would say, "Well, you're not enjoying the modern life if you don't have a TV, or you're not keeping up with
I know,
so and so or
I
whatever."
know. I
And
have no idea what all that is about.
but who cares?
It's a dim, vague memory. But
But
the reality is, you look at the statistics on people who are fully embracing modern life, and they're dismal.
yeah, that's a true fact. Yes, it is like you
Right.
said, depression, anxiety are on the rise.
Oh my
And
gosh. It's just for
yeah.
starters, right? And then it's the sedentary lifestyle promoted by sitting in front of the television, right? You're
Mhm.
getting overweight, getting diabetes, that
Yeah.
then, you know, contributes to dementia, heart disease, autoimmune disorders, allergies, all kinds of things people don't want. And objectively, and I come back to this a lot, people have a really skewed view of happiness. They did these studies with patients who'd had a procedure where for some reason they had a problem with their large bowel, and they had to have their large bowel redirected through their abdomen. So picture this,
Wow.
sorry for those of you at home, tender constitutions, but picture having to poop into a bag through your abdominal wall.
Oh, goodness. That
Yeah,
sounds horrible.
it is horrible. But guess what? That's a reality that thousands of people wake up to every day because they had a colonoscopy go wrong, and then they perforated their bowel. They have
Mm,
colon cancer. They have a colonic obstruction. They have some kind of other bowel issue, right?
mhm.
And so it happens. And what's interesting is they would ask those people, um, before you, or they did these studies. I don't remember exactly how they set these up, but basically after 6 weeks of having the colostomy bag on, people were, or reported that they were as happy as before they had it.
Whoa, that doesn't make sense.
It does make sense.
Okay, tell me.
Abraham Lincoln said people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be.
Oh, yes. That's
And so
very true.
you actually have a set point on your happiness. You actually have a set point on your weight. You have a set point on your internal temperature. You have all these set points. Now we
Mm,
can manipulate them. Like I can
right.
make anybody feel happy with the right cocktail of drugs from the local CVS. Not that that's ethical or appropriate, or I would do it, but you absolutely can. But
Yeah.
the crazy thing is, as we've documented countless times, and you know, guys like Bruce Lipman come to mind, the biology of belief, the brain
Mhm.
that changes itself, Gabor
Mm.
Mate, the mind body medicine crowd. You can have this profound impact on how you think and how you feel just by making up your mind. And that's something we come back to with patients all the time. I have this series on my podcast called Stories of Hope, Stories of Healing,
Oh,
where I
cool.
interview patients from my practice or from outside who I've met along the way who have an inspiring story of getting better. And there's some very consistent themes. And one of the very consistent themes, we joke that it's called gaslighting your way to success, because they
Oh.
will literally report, and I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. They say, even when it seemed hopeless, even when I didn't think I could win, even at the darkest moment with the most crippling, disabling, terrible symptoms, I told myself I was going to win.
Mm.
That failure was not an option. When all the experts, all the doctors, all the hospitals, all the lab tests said I was doomed, I said no, which I
Wow.
find remarkable.
That's
And
powerful.
it always makes me think of Han Solo's quote from, I think it's A New Hope. He says, "Never tell me the odds." He tells C-3PO that a lot, but
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah, it's protecting your mind. You need to protect that what's coming in,
it's very
and
important.
what like we were talking about before, like the toxicity of, social media and people, and just who you're surrounding yourself with, what you're surrounding yourself with. Oh, so good. Okay. So then
I have a
some of
feeling we're only 2 questions into like a 20 question
that's I
list.
mean, and they're all kind of similar too. And this, okay, I'm curious your thoughts on this too. Um, where do you see the future? This comes from Life Network as well. Where do
Mhm.
you see healthcare heading? Is it more connected to nature or even more disconnected? Where do you think it's heading, and where do you think it should be heading? I know your thoughts too, but
People are getting more connected to nature, but I think what you're seeing is rising health disparities, which I don't like as a buzzword, because it tends to sort of like, people then generally use the term health disparities to talk about basically forcing people to achieve similar outcomes. Like,
mm,
we're going to take money from the people who are healthy with taxes, and we're going to
yeah,
spend it on the people who are not healthy through government programs and things that usually end up getting co-opted by industry to do things like promote like colonoscopies and PSAs and all kinds of cancer screening that is of dubious, if any, value anyway. Long
right.
story there, which we won't unpack. But I see what I see happening in society is disparities are becoming more exaggerated across the board. So like the wealthier are wealthier.
It's true.
The poorer arguably can't get poorer, but the lower, the bottom of the, I don't know how you divvy this up, like the bottom 50% of earners, in relative terms, have less spending power than they did 40, 50, 60, 100 years ago. And
Wow.
the same thing's happening with health. So the people who are unhealthier are even more unhealthy. And this is becoming exponentially worse. And we saw this in the hospital before I left. And
Mm,
it's why the healthcare system is collapsing. And
yeah.
so what's happening is a very small proportion of patients, like 3%, 5%, are consuming, the vast majority of healthcare resources
Mhm.
because they choose not to lead a healthy life. Now, that's not to say that they haven't been educated, they haven't had the choice. They've been, born into families that taught them to be unhealthy, born into systems that promoted ill health. All of that's true.
Yeah.
However, there's also on the other side of that, there's a group of people who are increasingly interested, increasingly curious, spending more money on their health and wellness.
So
And
true.
those people are pushing the boundaries of what's possible and what's been done, which is amazing and
Yeah.
is very exciting.
Mhm.
So what I think is happening is, and we already have this, we already have really like there's a both our whole healthcare system is for profit. The whole profit motive you can't really disentangle truthfully.
Mhm.
Even the nonprofit hospitals are incredibly profitable. They just call their profits an operating surplus. And then they
Yeah.
use them to expand their business model and pay executives obscene amounts of money.
Yes.
And they behave very rapaciously with patients, which is very ugly. But anyway, what you're seeing happening is there is a very, and I think it's a growing movement of doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs, nurses, healthcare practitioners, and professionals who are leaving the conventional system behind and are just operating on a pure cash basis, because it's the only way you can really ensure high quality of care.
Right.
And you can really be invested in your patients. And that's what
Mhm.
I created in my practice. It's a members only practice. It's 170 patients, and the beauty of that is I spend, I mean, if you look at the numbers, if I've got 160 working hours in a month, I could arguably spend an hour on every case. Now, I don't do that because I've got to do things like,
Mm.
talk to my accountant and generate social media and write
Yeah.
blog posts. But
Right.
I'm also not just practicing, medicine and seeing patients. I'm, blogging and selling products and doing things like that.
Yeah.
But the point is, we're really working more and more with that self-motivated, ready to invest in their health cadre of society to push the
Mhm.
limits and see what's possible. And also demonstrate to society that what the conventional system is doing is really just a total crock.
Yeah.
They're not saving, I mean, if they're saving lives, it's like you waited until the building was consumed in flames to send the fire truck. You
Basically.
allowed the suicidal, patient to walk out into the middle of the bridge before you called the cops
Yeah.
or, restrain them yourself. So,
Right.
and we're also showing what's possible in terms of cost savings. I've got case after case where, I've got a patient who's got a high inflammatory level
Mhm.
in their blood, and that shows that they've got a high risk of heart disease or stroke. And we take that number and we cut it in half in 6 months to a year. And then we cut it in half again in another 6 months to a year. And so it's
Wow.
very rare for patients who come in with significant amounts of inflammation who stick with the practice for 6 months, a year, 18 months, 2 years to still have elevated levels.
Mm.
Usually we've made, a 50%, 75% improvement. Now they
Amazing.
have to be compliant, but the thing I've learned about compliance is that you have to have a genuine relationship with the patient. There has to be an investment on their side of time, energy,
Totally.
money. There has to be an investment of the clinician also on, and this is something that I found really interesting about having a members only practice, is that I track my outcomes. So the average patient in the practice reports that they feel 68% better at the end of a program or a membership. So that's anywhere
Yeah.
from 2 months with us to 18 months, which is a big time gap. And it's getting longer because, they're
Mm.
with us for longer. We have a very low churn rate. Very few people cancel the membership.
Yeah.
Um, and I realized that with that number, 68% improvement, if I onboard or allow the wrong patients into the practice, I'll actually hurt my numbers.
Totally.
So I watch those very closely to make sure that we're delivering really high quality care,
Mhm.
that we're actually preparing patients for success so they don't just sign up and then have the gym membership effect. I
Exactly.
spent $10,000 over, 50 years at the gym,
Yeah. The
and
gym.
I lost 0 pounds. Great for the gym,
Yeah.
not great for you,
Right.
not a win-win.
Yeah.
Maybe not even a win-lose, but a win break even. We really
Mm.
don't want the win break even, we want the win-win.
Yep.
So I'm always looking for, and this is the thing as an entrepreneur that's fascinated me, is all of this is possible. And what's crazy about it is I can go to a patient and say, "Hey, if you don't do what I tell you, you will not get better." And so if you're not
Yeah.
going to do what I tell you, why would I take you on as a patient?
Right.
I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your money. I don't want you taking a spot in my practice that could
Yeah.
be taken by somebody who's going to show up, do the work, and get the results.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm
That's cool.
excited about that. And
That's
I'm
great.
excited about duplicating that, which we're focused on how we duplicate that, because it's not necessarily a very straightforward equation.
No, yeah, and you're only, one Dr. Leland Stillman, and you can only see so many patients, like you said, to
Right.
get the quality of care. So yeah, duplicating your efforts and just getting the word out there to other practitioners who can do the same. And that's what's great about Life Network too. It's kind of just expanding and reaching more people like that, practitioners and members and clients alike. So that's good. So do you have a wait list going right now, or if people are curious and
We don't have
working?
a wait list.
Okay.
We have a very careful process for making sure that we're aligned before you become a patient. So you can't just buy a membership.
Yeah.
You have a discovery call, stillmanmd.com if you want to schedule that. And then that's a 15-minute call. You'll get an email before that that gives you, here's what our memberships are, here's what our programs are, here's how they're different. I have videos explaining everything we offer, why it's set up the way it's set up, who it's for, who it's not for, how to align it with your goals. And then you have what we call practice membership evaluation, which is 45 minutes to an hour with a team member of mine who I've trained very specifically in how do we figure out who this person is, what they need, and if we're the right practice to work with them. Because we
Right.
would much prefer to refer you out if someone else is better suited to serve you.
Of
So I've
course.
got an interesting case, right? I mean, it's not that interesting, but it's a case of a gentleman who's really not with the program that I've recommended to him, and he's not getting the results I would like him to get. And I just said to him on a call, hey, you've got to be followed by these other doctors because you were not essentially in alignment on your care.
Mhm.
I don't, and now you've got all these problems that I don't manage day in and day out anymore
Right.
because none of my patients have them because we solve them so quickly with natural and integrated methods.
Yeah.
So we have this process set up so that you win, we win, and everyone's happy. The goal is 100% patient satisfaction. 96% of patients would refer their friends and family to us. 96% say the investment in their health they've made with us is worth it. That's how I know we're doing good work.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Proof's in the pudding, like you said earlier.
It is. If you don't know what's going on in your business or your practice, ask your patients or customers. They'll tell you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you need to get that feedback on a constant basis and, at least every quarter, I would say probably, or, you probably have, surveys in place that people respond to. And
we have an end of program review with every single patient. So there's
amazing.
100% response rate and tracking of outcomes.
Okay, cool. So then I'm curious. Okay. So we have another question that kind of ties into what you're talking about with the client needing to be a part of the team and of their own success. So in
Yes.
your experience, what key patterns lead to successful chronic illness recovery? But that could just tie into
Yes.
what type of person do you need?
Well, so number one is that mindset piece that I talked about before.
Yeah.
It's so consistent across. And if you really want the long answer to this, is go listen to my podcast, Stories of Hope, Stories of Healing. I think I've got 4 or 5 people who've done podcasts with me on that. And I'm so excited for every episode because I always learn something.
That's amazing.
I know. And it's so I know how much it's impacting people who listen to them because I know that basically what the whole episode is designed to do is essentially like cast a vision for you to get well and then walk you through exactly what it was like and what it felt like and what it took.
Yeah.
So, and I do the same thing with my testimonials, which I don't spread around on the internet because I really respect my patients' privacy. And I don't feel like I could do that, but I don't feel very authentic about that. If you're interested enough to think about working with us, you get access to those if you just book a discovery call, but I'm not going to spread my patients' names and faces all over the internet. In any event, other than the mindset piece, the most important thing is, and honestly, it's not that different from fixing anything from a car to a house to an air conditioning unit to a boat. There's usually a combination of factors that has led to some key system falling apart. Now, if you let it go for long enough, the problem with the wheel misalignment turns into a crack in the axle, turns into a blown tire, turns into a fully destroyed axle, turns into a car crash where your car is totaled, right? That's I thought I just had a little gout, a little diabetes, a little obesity. That's kind of I'm not going to even jump into how funny of a pun that is. And then, you have a heart attack, right? That would be that analogy, right? Most people who seek my help understand that they should probably get out ahead of their problems before the heart attack. And so we're looking for, well, what is the combination of factors that's leading to your illness? And we actually have a very, very robust system that I refined over the last 5 years of practice and being mentored by a lot of different people, very smart clinicians, where we just have about 100, 150 questions that we will ask you. through a series of forms that are probably unlike any other doctor's office has ever asked you. It's
Mm.
also not some kind of exhausting intake, like, how many milliliters of blood did your mother lose when you were born? How many ounces did you breastfeed, before you were
Right.
weaned? Like, some people ask these ridiculous questions. I'm like, is this
Yeah.
really
How
clinically
do you even know?
relevant?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, so they're very like, how many times a day do you go outside? How much time do you spend in
Mm.
abundant natural indoor light? How many cups of coffee do you have a day? When is your last cup of coffee of the day? Things like that. And what's really remarkable is that no two patients have the top 3, 4, 5, 10 contributing factors, right? They're all different.
Right.
But we have these questionnaires. We also don't do them in one visit. We do them in a multiple visit sequence because it's A, exhausting to get through all of them at once. And B, people don't have the attention span to do that many forms well.
Oh no.
Yeah. So anyway, once we get people through that system, we kind of have a really good, clear idea of, okay, well, you're drinking the wrong water, you're drinking too much of it, you're drinking too little of it, you're not eating enough protein, you're eating too much protein, you're not eating enough fat, you're eating too little fat, you're taking the wrong supplements, you're taking the wrong medications, you're this, you're that, and then we figure those things out, and then we get them well. So key patterns, you have to be willing to look at the whole picture.
Yes.
And that's the big thing that I feel is often missing in integrative medicine is you've got the mold doctor, you've got the Lyme doctor, you've got the MCAS doctor, you've got the SIBO doctor, and everyone's
Yeah.
kind of siloed in their thing.
Right.
And they don't see the whole picture. And there's nothing wrong with being fascinated by a specific illness.
Mm-hmm.
I've got certain things that I'm very passionate about. Every clinician, I think, should. But
True.
at the same time, if the generalist is still, and I'm a general internist by training. The general internist is in so many ways the most powerful member of your wellness team other than you,
True.
because we see this picture. And I can't tell you how often it's just general medicine that gets the job done, not some kind of specialized knowledge. Oh, well, you need this, drug that we only use when this very rare or unusual biomarker is this number. And usually when you look in the literature at the benefit people get from that, it's actually quite marginal in terms of their absolute risk reduction, which is not very impressive. It always comes down to some big mistake people are making that a generalist can detect and understand, often not even a physician. I had a call with a guy the other day who's eating half as much protein as I really wish he were eating. And it's a huge component of his problem. A personal trainer could have picked that up. A coach could have picked that up.
Right.
A nutritionist could have picked that up. A dietitian could have picked that up. A friend could have picked that up, And so I actually I teach a lot of practitioners, coaches, you name it, what we do through a variety of different training programs. If people want to learn more about that and how to train with me, go to stillmanmd.substack.com. That's where I write about the training opportunities.
Cool.
But that's just one example. And there's so many that I could think of over the years.
Yeah, because it's the whole picture. Like you hit on just water alone too. It's like just these little things that, supplements, because we're inundated with so many supplements to take, and many people are probably taking the wrong things. And so it's getting somebody to kind of look at that whole picture with you is super, super important. So I love that you're also helping to train the other practitioners as well too. That's incredible. So expanding your reach even more.
Yes, we have a really good time training people.
That's so cool. Okay. So I know we are almost at time, so I'd love to wrap it up, just to be mindful of your time.
Do you want to do rapid fire questions? How many more do we have?
Yes, we have some rapid fire, and let's hit those, just to be quick on those and mindful of your time. Okay. Sorry, where did those go? Okay. What is your favorite time of day to get natural sunlight?
Morning.
Morning. Yeah, same here.
Early morning.
Yeah, totally. Most underrated but powerful health habit?
Getting the lights out at night and actually going to sleep.
Yeah, sleep is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. One EMF exposure mistake most people make?
Having their phone on transmit all the time and on their body when it's very easy to throw it in your backpack, throw it in a purse. It doesn't seem like much, but inches create exponential reductions in exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have anything to lose unless you do something like put it in a backpack and then have it stolen by a pickpocket. So, use your judgment, but most of you hopefully live in a nice place where that's not going to be a problem.
Yes, exactly. Or even just putting it in airplane mode, like you were saying.
Or
Just
that.
just
Yes.
flip that real quick. But yeah, just having that right there next to you all the time on
Mhm.
your body is, whew, yeah, not good. Okay, so then go to healthy meal you love when time is short.
So I take 2 scoops of goat milk whey. I put them in, it's right here. This is
Oh,
it.
uh-huh.
2 scoops of goat milk whey protein, a couple of heaping tablespoons of goat milk, a teaspoon of molasses, plus or minus 2 teaspoons of uh, Dutch cocoa powder, which if it's just the milk, it's just a protein rich milk drink, because milk is really low in protein.
Right.
And that's a problem for a lot of people.
Yes.
But and it's not low in protein, but I call it nature's perfect food for weight gain. And so it's actually really just loaded with carbs and fat relative to protein, because it is literally the solution to mammals needing to gain weight rapidly, which is why it's such a funny part of people's weight loss strategy. That's another
It
story.
is interesting.
Uh, and then the molasses is loaded with minerals. Goat milk is loaded with potassium.
Mhm.
And so it's a really nutrient dense meal. It takes me 30 seconds to whip up,
Yeah.
and it's probably 500, 600, 700 calories. And the more you go in with the molasses and the cocoa powder, the higher fat and higher calorie it gets.
That's gotta taste pretty dang good too.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you do that, like, once a day?
I've been doing that a lot in the mornings because our life's pretty all over the place with a 4-month-old.
Yeah.
And so there's just not a lot of consistency in meals right this second, but
Right.
we're looking forward to that coming back.
So that's like a foolproof way to make sure you're getting your nutrients and getting your
Mhm.
good healthy calories, and that's good, and your protein,
Yes.
so good. Okay, and then last one, what's one simple, non-negotiable health habit you practice every day?
Well, I get out of the house, and this is specific to me, right? I work from home with my wife here and my son here in the house.
Yeah.
And we have someone right now helping us with meal prep and
Mm,
housekeeping. And when she's not here, it's just the 3 of us. And I just find that for my well-being, I really like to get out in the morning and get a coffee. My
mm,
wife and baby are still asleep, so I just let them sleep. I head out the door, I get some fresh sunlight in my eye, and there's something for me about just having overhearing people in a coffee shop, being in a coffee shop is very cathartic for me. And so if you take that away from me, I tend to go a little bit nuts.
isn't that funny? Just that the little thing, and you can notice it in your day when you don't do it. That's good. Do you walk to the coffee shop, did you say?
Yeah, we know what's funny is this week one opened that's walking distance. Well,
Oh,
I
good.
mean, the other one's walking distance, but it would take me half the morning.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it's on a busy road. So I'm not exactly excited about walking along all that traffic. But
Yeah, true.
yeah, we have one that's walking distance, and then we have one that's a little bit further away that's a drive, but it's not that far. So I get my morning light and I get a little morning walk, and I get a little bit of time in airplane mode with my laptop to do writing. That's when I write a lot of my blog posts.
Oh, good. How long do you usually stay there at the coffee shop?
It just depends on the day and how early I get up. Like today was last night we had not such a good night with our son, and so I was up at around 8 instead of
Yeah,
my usual 7 or 6:45.
yeah.
And so I walked to the coffee shop and was only there for about an hour. It
Yeah.
also depends on when I'm getting started.
Mhm.
So we occasionally have people who want to see me at 9, or I may need to drive down to the office to see someone in person early.
Mm,
And so those mornings, that's shorter if it's happens at all.
yeah. That's good. That's an incredible morning routine just to I do that as well. I walk my son to school, and I notice that when I don't walk him to school, I my day doesn't start on the right note. And just getting that vitamin D and just walking, it just I don't know, clears my head, gives me just a good day to start. So I love
It's
it.
great. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So we did mention kind of where people could find you. Any other things that you want to make sure that we mention, like Instagram handle, those type of things?
My handle pretty much everywhere is Stillman MD. I think it's Leeland Stillman MD on YouTube,
Okay.
but near as makes no difference. But the best place to connect with me is my newsletter, Dr. Stillman Uncensored,
Mm,
which is hosted on Substack,
yes.
substack.com. So if you go to Substack and you look up my name, you'll find it. For ease, it's just stillmanmd.substack.com.
Hmm.
And that is where I publish an article almost every day of the week.
Amazing.
And you will get all my best tips, information, insights. There are some premium articles which
Hmm.
help me to afford my writing habit. And if you want to ask me questions, I have a weekly Q&A for the premium subscribers that they get access to on a weekly basis. Sometimes we skip a week, but I get
Yeah.
around to answering everyone's questions there.
That's amazing. And where do you host that? Within like YouTube or?
stillmanmd.substack.com. It's actually hosted. We actually just have a Google Doc where all the recordings are. So if you buy into the premium, you get access to all the past recordings as well.
Oh, that's cool. Okay, great.
It's a huge value for
Oh,
what it is.
good. Well, and then you're a core contributing expert with Life Network, and we have a lot of your
Mhm.
articles within Life Network as well as your videos we have in Life
Yes.
Network as well. So people can do a deep dive there too.
Yes.
And
And I'm
yeah,
looking forward to generating some more content for you guys.
yeah. Well, we appreciate what you've already put out there and, just your time today. You're incredible. And, I know you've helped so many people. So thank you for what you do in the world. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Take
Yeah.
care.
Take care. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next week on the Life Lounge. Take care. All right. We did it. It was like
We're still live.